The three biggest mistakes I've made in my education and what you can learn to avoid them. When I was a small boy, I was doing quite well in lower primary, and when I moved to upper primary, I thought I was as smart when actually the demands were much higher and when the level of difficulty was much higher as well. And I continued to just goof off and play basketball and didn't really focus on studies. And I found out how smart I was when I received the result of a public exam, really determining what kind of secondary school, what caliber of secondary school I could attend. On the day of announcement, the principal, Mr. Lau, came to me holding that piece of paper, and he was looking into my eyes and he was shaking his head, and he said something which I will always remember forever. He said, "Yip, you are such a smart boy, but too bad you didn't study." And when I opened the report, my heart stopped because I did poorly. And I knew, oh my gosh, I would be sent to one of the worst secondary schools, which was the case. And I didn't want to go home. I didn't know how to explain or how to tell my mom. And that was a devastating moment. And indeed, so that was my first mistake. I overestimated my intelligence and underestimated the diligence, the hard work that was required to succeed. So please don't make the same mistake as I did, as it was really painful. I was assigned to a really bad secondary school. My friends were gangsters. No one was interested in studying except a handful of students. And I tried to study, and I think that was the problem because I tried to study. And instead of really just jumping in and studying hard and avoiding procrastination, avoiding distractions, temptations, and because my foundation was so weak, I had a lot to catch up. For the first 2 years in secondary school, I tried hard, and yet with nothing, no good results to be in sight, and I was still struggling. And when I look at those successful students, and I thought they were aliens. It's like, how did they do it? I studied hard, but how did they do it? So I started to think, hey, maybe they got lucky, or the teachers liked them, and even became jealous and envious of these top students. And so I was fighting against that. I said, that is not fair. This is really terrible when I was studying so hard and I was not getting the results. And at the end of the secondary 2, the principal called me in and he said, our school is not the best, but your results are not good enough. And you need to think about your future. In fact, I was about to be kicked out and I asked for a second chance, and the principal gave me a second chance. And at that moment, I thought, hey, these top students were not my enemies. They were not my opponents. I was my own enemy because I had all those bad habits and I was not serious enough still about improving, about getting the results that I wanted. So I went to the top 2 students at that time and I asked them if they could teach me. And surprisingly, they agreed. They asked, why? Why do you want to learn? And I said, because I'm about to be kicked out from school. And I became good friend with these two top students. And in fact, we studied together and I learned that they studied their butt off too. So here, don't ever think top students are just lucky. No, never. In my experience, in training thousands of them, they work so hard behind the scenes. No one understands the tears, the sweat, maybe even the blood, okay? And they study so hard. Yet the difference is these top students, they develop the habits of good organization, proactive planning, self-discipline, self-control, and they learn how to study smart, which I learned from the top 2 students at that time. And eventually, I became a top student myself and even got a Fulbright scholarship to America to study. And I graduated in 3 years from Franklin College with 3 majors: business, economics, and computer information science, and summa cum laude with the highest distinction. And I'm sharing this with you not to brag, no. Okay, unlike before, now I really don't have an ego. I just want to share with you that you can do the same thing, but you've got to change your mindset. So the second lesson which I learned is, do not compete with other people. You learn from them. You really learn the best practices, but you always want to compete with yourself, to be better than yourself from yesterday. And that is the game you should be playing. Okay, now the third biggest mistake is I was not true to myself, to my heart's desire. So I didn't shine to my true potential because I would choose classes that would look good on the resume. I picked computer science. At that time, I studied computing, and when actually I was not cut out for it. You know, when I look at my friends and oh my gosh, they could camp out at the computer lab, and I was like, this is not me. I was swimming against the currents. Of course, I struggled. Although I did well, I struggled and I was miserable. I was suffering in pain. And you know what? We tend to repeat the same mistakes. When I went to MBA at Indiana University, at the time number 7 in America, and my buddies told me, hey, Alan, the smartest students would choose finance. I said, yeah, okay. And I chose finance. Biggest mistake, because I don't have it. I'm not cut out for finance. I'm best at communication. I'm best at strategy, at thinking, okay, and the soft aspect, but not really the hard number crunching using Excel and finance. And you know, of course I graduated with good results, but once again I suffered for 2 years. And in fact, when I look back over so many decades, I didn't use my degree. It got me into the job and making good money, and but when I look back, it was not fulfilling at all. It was hollow success. So this is a lesson, please, for you to take to heart. Do not choose subjects like in your IB, IGCSE, or A level, which you think will look good on the resume. Do not choose subjects because other people say, hey, you need to choose that, or your buddies asking you to join them. I think you've got to make your own decision. You've got to look at your cup of tea, your interest, your passion, and look to the future as well. What are the trends? You don't want to study something that will become obsolete, but you've got to strike that balance and pursue something that you truly love, because that way you become successful. And the most important thing is it is enjoyable for you. So with that, I really hope these mistakes of mine can serve as guideposts for you. And if you find this video useful, please share it. Please give me a thumbs up. Okay, all the best.